Good. Good to start.
Okay, can I continue?
Yep.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was introducing myself, right? I said, Darlington. I work as the ecosystem associate with Argent, and I've been privileged to take us through an introduction to starknet.js. And I hope that by the time we're probably done with the class, right, would be able to build user interfaces for our smart contracts that our users can interact with. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen and we could get started. I've prepared a few slides which we'll probably go through. Um, right, I am having issues in my network, so I'm just going to have to turn off my video so it doesn't interrupt with the network. I hope that's fine.
Yeah, go for it. Whatever works for you. Alternatively, one of us could share the screen for on your behalf, and you could just talk through it, whatever you're more comfortable with.
Okay, I just turn off my video, right? Okay. Yep. So we're going to be going through an introduction to starknet.js, and the end goal basically is by the end of the class you should be able to like build user interfaces for your starknet contracts using starknet.js. I already introduced myself. So we're going to be going through a few things before. I'm just going to replace this. Sorry. Yeah, so we're going to be going through a few things before we get into the live coding session. So basically it's supposed to be like a hands-on class. We're going to be going through an introduction to starknet.js. We're going to be looking at a few components I think we need to like get an understanding of to properly understand how starknet.js works. Then we are going to take a brief walkthrough through the get-starknet package, which is basically an SDK built on top of a JavaScript SDK built on top of starknet.js. And finally, we're going to be building our first app with we're going to build our first app with get-starknet basically. All right, so introduction to starknet.js. starknet.js is a JavaScript library that helps to connect your website or your decentralized application to the Starknet network using JavaScript or TypeScript language. If I'm not wrong, right, it was started by Cian, the co-founder of StackScan, and it has been like the, should I say, the most popular library basically used for interacting with Starknet dApps. And there are a few components within starknet.js that you need to understand in order to like build proper dApps or build proper UIs for our smart contracts, right? So the first of them is the provider. So the provider is basically an API provided by starknet.js that enables you to interact with Starknet without necessarily needing to sign messages. Example, when you want to perform read calls, so you can read states from Starknet.js without signing messages, but you cannot alter or modify the contract state. So basically, I think we've had previous classes. We had previous classes on I'm writing your first Cairo contract, right? And you know that we have view functions and we have external functions, right? So with the provider API, you'll be able to only read Starknet status. You'll be able to only make view calls, but you cannot alter or modify the contract state. So that's need like a signature from an account. Next, we're going to be looking at the signer API. So the signer API is what simply allows you to like sign transactions and messages. Basically, what you use for when your wallet pops up and asks you to sign something, right? Basically, that's the signer API used for that. Then we have the account API. So the account API extends like the primary features of the provider API to also include the signer API, which can be used to like create and verify signatures. So this API, unlike the provider, can make both read and write calls to the blockchain, and as such is the primary way to interact with Starknet contracts. So summarizing this right, the account API, I tend to see the account API as like a combination of both the provider API and the signer API. So basically, with an account API, you can make read calls, you can make write calls, and it's the API we are going to be primarily using for our interactions in our app, right? Then we have contracts. So contracts are primarily how we create instantiations of our smart contracts with JavaScript. Um, Basically, your contracts would take in the contract's ABI, the contract address, and the provider or account. The ABI, basically, ABI stands for Application Binary Interface, and that's how you inform starknet.js, right, of the right methods to call. That's how starknet.js like gets access to like your contract methods. So to instantiate, think of a contract basically as just a JavaScript instantiation of your smart contract, just like I wrote here, right? So you need to pass in, like I said, you need to pass in the ABI so that starknet.js should be able to like know the methods contained within your smart contract. You need to pass in the contract address, that's the address we're going to be interacting with. And finally, you need to pass in a provider or account. But I would advise you passing the accounts, right? Because just like we stated the differences, if you pass in the provider, you'd only be able to like make read calls to the blockchain, but you wouldn't be able to write to the blockchain. So uh, you could always pass in an account. So for our hands-on session today, we're going to be using the get-starknet SDK. So the get-starknet SDK is a community-managed open-source JavaScript SDK, which was built on top of starknet.js. So get-starknet basically helps you provides easier methods, right? Helps you to like create like wallet connections to dApps, um, and just basically help you interact with starknet.js. I forgot to I should have added links to these slides, right? But if you search for get starknet GitHub, I think you should have it should be under starknet area. Um, so this is the link to like the get starknet GitHub. You could always contribute to it if you think there's something that needs to be added or you found a bug during your usage of get starknet, right? You could always go to the repo to contribute to it. And so I already explained get-starknet is a development SDK basically, which enables you as a developer to build and connect your dApps to Starknet with Starknet.js. And there are a few advantages. There are numerous advantages of using get-starknet, right? I just listed a few here. So the first is get-starknet is open source and it's managed by the general Starknet community, right? So this helps ensures that bugs are detected and fixed while promoting speedy innovation. So we also have the advantage of the fact that it's very easy to implement, right? You don't need to be a JavaScript expert to use get-starknet. It's lightweight and it's very easy to implement or use. You just need to install and import the connect and disconnect methods, and with that alone you should be able to like create you should be able to create proper um you should be able to connect to like wallet providers, right, and do some more interesting stuff. So think of get-starknet as a gateway to starknet, right, because it just enables you to easily connect your users to starknet dApps and wallets. And so we're going to be going into like the most important part of the class, and that's a hands-on session with starknet.js. So I already created a repository beforehand. It's brief, right? I already created a repository beforehand. So let me paste this in the chat. Mm, yeah, so the repository basically contains it contains some basically boilerplate to help you get started. Because if we were to like go through every single step, would be burning a lot of time. So we're just going to be using this repository, right? This boilerplate. So just head over, copy the SSH, and try to clone it. So I'm just going to create a new folder. Just call this Basecamp. Let me put this in my terminal, right? And I'm going to clone that repository. Oh, sorry about that. Yep. So having cloned the repository, right, let's like take a brief walk through it before we go ahead to install the packages and get started. All right. So if you check the package.json, right, when these are the packages that are going to be installed when we run npm install. So we're going to be needing the get-starknet dependency. So for this particular class, I'm going to rather be using the that's Argent's version of get-starknet. That's at Argent/get-starknet. And the reason why I'll be using it is because the current open source, that's the community managed get-starknet, do not exactly incorporate web wallet, which is new feature we just launched. And basically everything is the same, interactions and every other thing is like the same, right? But we're going to be using at Argent/get-starknet instead, so we can have access to like web wallet and some other stuff. So we're also going to be installing React, right? Very necessary, and we're going to be installing starknet.js. I think this will be like the latest version. Let me just confirm. Um, looking for forgot to check this earlier. So, alright, so its latest version is 5.19.5. So you could just bump that up, right? You could decide to bump this up, but I'm just going to leave this for now. And I think that's just all we need, right? To get subnet package, all the React dependencies, and starknet.js itself. Okay, so we're just going to run npm install all our dependencies. And while we do that, I'm just going to walk us through like the boilerplates to help us understand the boilerplates basically. Sorry. All right. So we only the boilerplate basically is a very simple React application, and our focus is mostly going to be on the source folder, since this basically where our UI is contained, right? So the first folder, as you could notice, right, is the ABI folder, which contains our ABI file. So this the ABI specification for like the smart contracts we're going to be interacting with. And if you check the, we're not going to be using the utils folder. You could just delete this. We're not going to be using that. And so next, we're going to head into app.js, right? And oh, this is actually the wrong. Sorry, that's not the boilerplate repo actually. That's already the full codes already. So let's go back. The repository I actually needed you to clone was Basecamp frontend boilerplate. Sorry about that. Skipped my mind. But you could still check that out, right? That contains like the updated codes. So, but this is the right repository to clone. This is the right repository to clone. So please let's just clone this instead. Um, let me see. close this up meanwhile. And all right, so let's do this instead. Okay. Yep, I apologize for that. So this is like the boilerplate repo. Okay, exactly. The utility folder is not supposed to be there. Okay. So well, when you clone this, just simply run npm install to get our dependencies installed to get started. All right. So we already looked at the ABI.json, right, which is like the ABI specification of our smart contract. Then if you go into app.js, I already built like a very simple, very minimal React application. It has a user interface already. So this was just to ensure that we don't have to do a lot of unnecessary stuff during the class. So please try to use the boilerplate. So if this gets installed, right, I think I have another React stuff running. So I'm just going to stop this. Oh, was that running? Let's just use brief. Um, all right. So this is like the minimal UI we are going to like using for this particular class. So it's a very simple application. It's like think of it as the normal counter you would normally build when starting to learn so a programming language like JavaScript. So the increase increments the counter value, the decrease increments the decrements or decreases the counter value, and we could use the get counter to get the value of the counter. And the contracts is deployed at this particular address. The contract is deployed here. Let me paste this in the chat. Okay, sorry. Someone was asking, is there a non-React version of this app as well? I didn't build a non-React version. By non-React version, hash, do you mean like using vanilla JS, or do you mean like using another template such as Next.js or Vite? Okay, it's Svelte, for example. Well, I think you could basically, if you understand how this works, right, you could basically use any template of your choice. I have no experience with Svelte, so I believe you should be able to use any JavaScript library or JavaScript framework of your choice. All right. So the contract is deployed here, right? And if you go to read the right contract, you see that we have just a single view function, that's the get current count, and for the right we have like two external functions. We have the increment to like increment the value of the counter, and we have the decrement to like decrease the value of the counter. And you could always check out the ABI from StackScan. So if you go head to the class code slash history, check out the ABI. You could always copy your ABI from here, right? And use that. So we're going to be using this contract, and we have a few methods installed. We have a few methods imported. We're going to be importing the connect and the disconnect from Argent slash get-starknet. And I said this earlier, so I'm just going to retreat on it, right? Everything we're going to be doing, right, works the same way for like get-starknet. You're still going to import the connect, disconnect. You're still going to do everything we're going to be doing, right? The difference is you're probably going to be installing get-starknet rather than at Argent slash get-starknet. My network. Okay. Yeah.
Darlington,
Instead
just
of
quick.
yeah, yeah.
I, I just want to give people like a minute to quickly pause because we just went through a couple of setup procedures over here. If people have any question, they weren't able to catch up. Maybe now's the time to quickly get everything ready before Darlington jumps into the code. So, does anyone have any questions, or should we just like pause for a minute? Hey, Ronolfo.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, we can hear you. So someone's asking, is it possible to connect to DevNet? Uh, and Harsh is asking, what is the ABI JSON used in this case? Is it the Sierra compiled version of a basic smart contract? Darlington, would you like to take those questions?
All right. So yeah, definitely you can connect to DevNet. I believe you should be able to connect to DevNet, but I think that should be done because you are establishing the connection to. So, for example, I think Argent Bravos, you should have like a place from which you can add a custom RPC, right? You could use a DevNet RPC to do stuff. So yeah, it should be possible to connect to DevNet. And for the second question, what is the ABI.json used in this case? No, it's not the Sierra compiled version of your smart contract. So the ABI basically stands for Application Binary Interface, and it's not exactly what you deploy to Starknet, right? It's more like a JSON representation that's how do I put it right? That lists the specifications for your smart contract. So, for example, EBI is right. More like what makes it possible, right, for let's say other smart contracts to call functions in your smart contract. So your interface, I think, exposes an ABI which other smart contracts can use to call the methods um, that are contained within your smart contract. So we are just basically using the ABI.json to expose to starknet.js the functions which would need to call on our contracts. And yeah, Ivan just specify that yeah, you can connect to DevNet, and there are official docs and guides that explains how to connect. That's true. Very sorry I've not shared that yet, right? But you could always get more info in the official starknet.js documentation. Because there are a lot we can definitely not touch on. For example, if you're to the API session, you would see a lot of stuff on before APIs you mentioned, you should see stuff on data transformations and every other thing we'll probably not cover during like the course of this class. So I'm just going to paste this in the chat and please do check it out later. All right. Are there any more questions or can we move on?
Can, Uchenna, would you
Can you?
mind explaining the question is, can one use NPM to create starknet?
I don't think I understand the question. Uchina, could you throw more
Yeah.
light? What is it? What do you mean by npm to create starknet? Npm, or is that supposed to be like an npx command, like npx create starknet?
Oh, I see. I see.
Oh, I believe you should be able to do that with starknet-react, right? I think starknet-react provides an npx script you could use to like set things up and get them installed. But I don't think there is something of that nature for like get-starknet. But you could check, but I doubt you could just run npx create starknet and get everything installed too. But just use the boilerplate. The boilerplate basically makes everything available. So so the ABI used is shown in the contract, right? This is where you are. Let me check.
Also, Darlington, could you please share the link to the Voyager page that you're on? I think some people are confused about the API that you're using.
Okay, okay. So I am currently using sorry, I'm using StackScan, right?
Oh yeah, sure.
You could find the API here. And you could also get it on Voyager too. I think the link when I posted is correct. This
Also,
is
I'm
300. Yeah.
curious. Is there a way for you to inspect the console when you're interacting with the web page you just deployed and get some information such as the address of the underlying contract or the function that is being called in the console itself?
Sorry, come again.
Could you just go to the web page you deployed right now, the React app?
Okay, yeah.
Is there a way to inspect the console for this web page and use the console to understand the address of the underlying contract or any other information? You know what I mean? Like when you
I
inspect the web page, yeah, if you go to
okay.
console, like is there a way for you to like get any information about the contract from the console?
Yep. Is it like information about the starknet contract or like information about the methods contained within the APIs provided by starknet.js?
I see. Gotcha. Okay, that answers my question. Okay, I guess we can move on.
Oh, okay. Um, let me check. All right, no more questions. Okay, so we could get started. I don't know. By this point, right, we should all have our dependencies installed, right? Like our boilerplate is ready to go. Not getting any replies. Probably reaction. Something could help. Right. Thanks. Okay. So I guess we'll move on then. I hope he's still not ready. Okay. All right. So, moving on, we're going to be importing our contract ABI from our ABI.json. This is like I said earlier, we're going to be using this for instantiating our contracts, right? And this is like the contract address we want to interact with. So we'd have to like specify this. And once we do that, so this is like a simple React application. Um, I I want to believe we are not new to React, right? So if you're new to React, so basically we just have this simple function called app, and basically within the return we have our UI. So in here is everything you see on our React app, right, is contained within this return. And we are going to be instantiating some states, right, using like the use state method from React, right? So we want to be able to like set our connections, accounts, address, and the retrieved value when we're trying to get our counter. So in case you're confused, though, I believe things should like get clearer as we proceed. So for the buttons, right? Remember we have two buttons. We have the increase counter button and the decrease counter button. So basically, using JavaScript to see that when they are clicked, right, we want to call these methods. We want to call increase counter and decrease counter. For now, if you click on it, right, nothing is going to happen. So until because we've not yet written the logic for this particular functions. And we have like the get counter function, which when clicked on it, right, we want to return our retrieved value. Retrieved value basically we're going to be setting it using this, right? Okay, so we're going to be starting from our very first um, function, which is the connect wallet. So we want to be able to like connect to a wallet provider, and to do that, right, we are going to start with just before I proceed, right, I just wanted to ask, is the font size okay, or
I was
do I need
about
to
to
increase it a
interrupt
bit?
you. Yeah, I was about to interrupt you. Someone is asking for increasing a bit, if you can, please, Darlington.
All right, let me just start. I think I skipped it here. Let me try 17. This is clearer. This is clear enough, right?
Looks like we'll wait. Yeah, people is acknowledging. Thank you.
Right. So we are going to be waiting, like making a call to the connect method, and we want to await the call, right? And for the sake of web wallet, we're going to be doing we're going to be passing in our web wallet URL, okay, which is okay. I think you've mentioned web wallet. I don't know if like a lot of us are already familiar with web wallet. So basically, web wallet is a new type of wallet we launched, which basically it takes advantage of account abstraction to simplify the user experience for so our major targets are basically like let's say users who are transitioning from web 2 to web 3, right? We are trying to like give that web 2 experience basically using a self custodial wallet. So it's a wallet that basically lives in your browser, and we want to give users with web wallet accounts the ability to connect to our decentralized our application, right? That's why I'm going to be passing in the web wallet URL, which is like URL for connection to mainnet. And having done that, right, we want to check. I'm going to check that connection is set right, and that connection that is connected is true. So this returns true, and if it does, what we are going to be doing is we're going to be setting some stuffs, right? So let's start with setting our connection object. We're going to set that to connection, and we are going to be setting our accounts, which is what we're going to our account, which is basically the API we're going to be using to like make calls to our starknet smart contract. And set account is going to so within the connection method we have the account property. So we want to get this right and store it within these use states. And we are going to, let me just do this. Okay, and within here, another thing we probably need to set right is the address. So we want to set our wallet address and output it to our users. So we could also get that from, there's a method called selected address, which you could use to connection.selected address. And I think this would be about all we need, right, to like create a proper connection. So all we just did here, right, was we awaited the connect method and stored it in this object, and we said if connection is true and connection dot is connected, right? If connection is set and connection dot is connected is true, we want to set this these variables we already created, right? So we're going to be setting connection, setting the account, and setting the address. And okay, so we already have a connect button, so the connect wallet button. So this calls the connect wallet method, which we just implemented, right? And I'm just going to uncomment this, right? Because we want to make sure that we want to output the user's address when the user is connected. And to do that, we could just simply, we could, rather than just fixing address, right? We could check. We could say as if address is set, right? we want to like show the address. Else we can just show nothing. Okay. So now let's try to see if that works, right? Not that brief. Right. So if we now try to call the connect wallet method, right? You can see that we now have a new modal made available to us, which we can use to connect to either the injected connectors, which are Argent and Bravos extensions, or to continue with your email, which is like your connection to web wallet. So let's say I try to connect to Argent X. It pops up, asks me for my password, and I can just pass that. Right. Okay, there's this little bug and it's fixing. Try this again. Yep, so and I have my Argent wallet address here. Right. So as you can see, this is like my Argent wallet address. And we want to be able to disconnect our wallets, right? We want to be able to disconnect. Let's say I want to disconnect to Argent and connect to Bravos, or I want to disconnect from Bravos and connect to web wallet. I should be able to disconnect. And disconnecting should be very simple, right? We are just going to await the disconnect method. So we're going to call the disconnect method. And the next thing we're going to do is we want to like unset all these variables we set initially. Just set them to undefined. So the user should not be able to have access to these variables if he's not connected to like a wallet provider, right? So we are going to set connection to undefined, right? And we want to set the account to undefined. Okay. Then finally we are going to be setting our address. Let's just set our address to this, right? To an empty string. Okay. And disconnect wallet would need to now implement we would need to do a little bit of tweaking to our boilerplate code. So we want to use the same button, right? We want to use the same button, but what we want to do is, for example, you can see we are connected to a wallet, but the button still shows connect wallet. So we want to change it. We want to do something like, if I'm connected to a wallet, rather than connect wallet, we should have a disconnect button here. And if I'm not connected, I should see the connect wallet button. So something we could do is we could come to our application, and in here we're going to do something. We're going to say if connection is detected, right? What do we want to do? We are going to use a disconnect button instead. We're just going to have disconnect, and this is going to call the method disconnect wallet. Yeah, it's going to call disconnect wallet. And else, that's if we don't have a connection is not found, right? So we are just going to paste this in. We're just going to paste this in. And I think that should be it. That should work. So if we go back to our wallet, as you can see, we now have disconnect button. And if we click on disconnect, as you can see, we are disconnected from our wallet provider. Now we click on connect wallet again. And so there's this funny things with extension wallets, right? You probably need to disconnect from, where's that again? Yeah, go to connected dabs. I'm just going to disconnect from here. All right. And now if I reload this, right, yeah, I shall have my connect wallet method. Right. So when now let's trying to connect to my Bravos wallet, right? So let's pass in my password. And approve my connection. And as you can see, I just connected to my Bravos account, and I just disconnected from it, right? Then if I try to connect once again, okay, sorry, that is weird. I do not want to connect, right? Okay. I want to see my modal pop up instead, not this. I have no idea what's wrong, right? Let me just try to reset all my lab connections. Hmm. Okay, let's do something. So let's try to implement a use effects. So want to do something like, but before I move on, right? I don't know if there are any questions in the chat. Okay, so Tim says I also face the same issue. What issue is that? Okay, the issue I just faced now. Okay, while we wait for a reply. Oh, not seeing the model every time. I have no idea why that is right. I probably need to update my. Let me see. So 6.4.7. Let me check what I have in package edition. Okay, let's just try to update all our dependencies and see if that fixes anything. Let's go back to get-starknet and update that too. Not get-starknet. Is it get-starknet? Sorry, starknet itself here. 5.19.5. So let me use that instead. This is a very old version. Alright. Then just going to go back to my terminal. Let's see. Unable to resolve dependency tree. Interesting. Cannot resolve a starknet from 5.6.0. Okay. Seems like that is not compatible yet. This is 5.18.0 instead. Still conflicting dependencies. Found that this 6.4.3. Okay. Just to be sure, let me delete this. Let's see if this is. Same thing.
What did you change in the package decision?
All right, I was just trying to update my packages, right, to like the latest ones. So the versions I've been using, right, was from a previous workshop I did. So there's been like some updates to like the versions since then. So trying to see if it fixes the bug I just fixed right now.
And can you just mention what the option you used stands for, just for people following you?
Okay. So basically, I updated my Argent slash get starknet to 6.4.7, and for starknet, I'm using 5.18.0. And then when you run, if you run into if you run npm install and run into any issues, you could probably run into it, the legacy plugins arguments, and just to run that to get like new packages installed. And let's check if we fix it to fixes that. All right. Okay. Let me try this. Right. Sorry, I forgot to use brave. Still doing same stuff. Um,
Why don't we take a quick 5 minute break at this point? We've also been going for 50 minutes, and I think that'll give us some time to catch the bug, and then people can just start afresh.
all right. I think we could do just that. Let me try to find where that is coming from, and we
Yeah,
could continue
sure.
from there. Yeah.
So it's 8:52 on my end. Let's start at 8:57. So sorry, it's an odd time interval to be given, but you folks in just 5 minutes. Feel free to take a break.
All right. Sure.
Hola. I think it's time for us to get started.
All right, yeah, Buck. I think we could get started.
Sure. Yeah. Just let people trickle in. Were you able to make any progress with the bug?
Yeah, I just resolved it now. All right, so basically what happened was remember when we established a connection, right? We set these variables to this state, right? We set them, and basically the disconnect function is supposed to like change all this to undefined. But the problem was I went directly to my Argent browser to like clear all my connected dApps. But within the connection, it was still detecting Argent as my injected connector, right? So I just had to connect back and call the disconnect function. And now, if you try it, you can see that we now have the modal. So, Satyam, I hope that helps you like resolve your problems too. Do not see the modal anytime issue. Yeah, and I guess we could continue. Okay, so we could. I also wanted to just try to connect to web wallet, right? Yet. Oh, let me see. Oh, sorry. Not this. So wrong. Connect wallet. Yep. So I was just trying to like connect my web wallet account, which you could obviously do if you have one. Yep. So I just have my web wallet account connected, and like I said, you have as much injected connectors as you want to play around with. Okay. So the next thing we're going to head forward to doing, right, is I want to do a small tweak. I want to ensure that, let's say, in the case of a reload, right, the user still has access to some of these variables, right? And I'm going to like implement that using like a use effect. So we're going to use a use effect, right? And within our use effects, we're going to use an arrow function. Okay, and we want to say do this on reload, right? Okay. And what we're going to do basically is just going to write the whole connection stuff, right? So it's going to be very similar to what we already have, right? But in this time around, I'm going to pass in an argument called modal mode. Yeah, and this is going to be never asked. So what we're saying is, if for example the user was connected previously, the user should be able to connect the second time without having to like have the modal pop up again to ask him what he wants to connect to, right? So we're just going to detect, like, establish the connection once again because we already have all those sets. So we're also going to pass in the web wallet URL unless our web wallet is not going to web wallet iframe is not going to pop up. So this is right. Yep, and sorry. For this to happen, right, we need to have an async function. Um, sorry, connect starknet. First is await. We have to have an async function, and within our async function, we are going to um do the normal thing we just did, right? Await connect. And within here, we want to pass in our modal mode. never ask. And we also going to pass in our web wallet URL, which is going to be this web. There's Argent, there's XYZ. Okay. And we're going to also do the same thing, right? If one check if connection set right, and then connection that is connected. Sorry, please, a minute. Someone's at my door. Sorry about that. So connection that is connected. Okay. So in this case, we want to do the same thing, right? Just set the connection. We already have the set the connection. Connection. We're going to set our account, right? To the connection, use the account property, and we are going to set the address, which is going to be the selected address property. All right, so then we just want to call let's just call this. Okay, so because of time, right, we need to go ahead to implementing these functions. So in here is where we're going to try to like interact with our deployed smart contracts. So if you head over back to like our ABI.json. Before then, let me check if there are any questions in the chat. Okay, none. All right. So if you head back to our ABI.json, right, we have like three major functions implemented. We have the forget the other thing, just focus on the names, right? So we have the get current count, which we are going to be using to like get the current count. We have the increment function, which we're going to be using to like increment our counter. We have the decrement function, which we are going to use to like decrease the value of our counter. And I already played with this smart contract earlier. So if you head over to stack scan and then you read the right, let's check the current count because that would determine if our UI is working as planned. So if you query the current count, right, see our current count is 4. Okay. So the first thing we want to do is work on the increase counter function. Right. Okay. Before we work on the increase counter function, let's work on the get counter function. Because with the get counter function, we'll be able to check if the other two functions are working. Every time we call this right, we can call the get counter to see if the call to our smart contract went through. Now within our get counter, we are going to be using a provider. Remember, we use our providers to like to read the values of our of the starknet network, right, without having to use an account. And we're going to be importing the provider. We're going to be needing that. Okay. And we are going to be instantiating a provider. So we're going to do that the same constant provider is going to be new provider. And in here we need to pass in the sequencer and our network is going to be we're going to use constants. Okay, we need to import this. Let's see that constant. Yeah, do I have that imported? Import this not from buffer. Wrong. Okay. Yeah. All right. So constants that the network mean, and we're going to for contracts we're going to be using mainnet. In case of WebOlly basically runs only on on mainnet. So we're going to be using mainnets for the purpose of this, right? But you can always pass in like an RPC URL for like your DevNet network, or you could decide to use a provider such as Infura and the rest, right? But I'm going to be using the sequencer. All right, I missed something. So these are arguments, so they are supposed to be contained in here. Oh, in here. Okay. Just that's better UI. All right. And having done that, right, we are going to use a try catch statement. So the reason why you need try catch statement, right, is we want to try. Let's say we try to get the counter. We make a call to starknet, right, and it returns an error. We want to be able to console log the error, and probably use that for like debugging purposes. So it's advisable use a try catch statement to help you with debugging, right? So we're going to catch any error thrown, and we're going to return it. All right. Within our try, we are going to be instantiating our contract. And to do that, we are going to be using the contract API, which we just imported from starknet.js. And we are going to be passing three important properties. As you can see, it takes in three important arguments. We need to pass in our ABI, our contract ABI. We need to pass in like our contract address, and we need to pass in like a provider or an account. But since it's like it gets a read function, a view function we are trying to call, we are just going to use the provider instead of the account. And so our ABI is contract ABI. So we're just going to pass in contract ABI. Okay. And our address is contract address. We're going to pass that in contract address. Then finally, we are going to pass in our provider API. Okay, so having done that, we are going to try to get the value of our current counter, and then we're going to see await contract that what are we trying to call? We're trying to call get current count, right? So I'm going to await contract that get current count. All right. So there's a little issue here, right? And that's the fact that we know that basically starknet operates on felt 252, and as you can see, we're trying to return a uint 256 here. So as you can see, the output for get current count is uint 256, but uint 256 is basically like a struct with two felt 252s, a low and a high value, right? Sorry, two uint 128, the low and the high value of the uint 256, right? And so we are going to need to do some data transformation. We're going to need to do some manipulation in order to output the right number. I think starknet.js has a great. Let's check the docs on starknet.js. .com. I remember. So if you go to the guides, go to data transformation, right? There are a lot of things you can go through as regards to how you can transform your data, and this is very important because it doesn't just end with getting the data or like trying to pass it, because when you're trying to like pass in different values like uint 8, uint 16, uint 32, there are a lot of fail 252s and the rest, right? There are some little manipulations you have to do. And since currently we have like two Cairo versions, right? We have Cairo 0 and then Cairo 1, basically, which we call Cairo now, which has two different data types. So Cairo 0 has everything as felt, right? An integer of 251 bits, and Cairo 1 has different literal types, which are all created from fields under the hood, right? So we have unit 8, unit 16, unit 32, and so on and so forth. They also array and structs and tuples and the rest. So you need to know how to manipulate this. And we don't have a lot of time to like go through this, right? But we'll go through some parts we are going to be using. So, for example, if you want to pass in, let's say you're trying to invoke a function and it takes in either of this, a felt, a unit 8, a unit 16, you need to send the big number starknet.js method alongside. For bulls, you can see it's always awaiting a felt. For unit 256, it's awaiting two fields, basically just how you do stuff right when writing tests. So you need to pass in a low and a high value. And so what we're trying to do, right, is we're trying to get a unit 256 value. So you can scroll down to, I think there's a place for like receiving data. You could check this out. So, but because of time, let's just move forward. What we're going to be doing is we are going to okay. Let me, rather than console log, right? Let me just go ahead to set retreats, because basically it's going to get outputed in here, and we could just debug straight on from there. So we want to set the value we receive, right? And we're going to need to convert it to string, because I believe it's going to come out as like a big number which you need to like convert to a string. But in case we run into any errors, right, we will just simply like console log and maybe use that for debugging. So okay, this will counter. Right, so let me try out this. Okay, so as you can see, using the provider, we can now get the value of our current counter. If you check on stack scan, you see that our current count is 4, right? And now if you go back and try and disconnect, right, you notice even if we disconnect our wallet and try to get the counter, we should be able to do that because we are not requiring a signer key. We're not requiring an account to like get values. We're just simply using a provider. Okay, so but the remaining two functions we are going to be implementing, the increase counter and the decrease counter, are going to be invoking an execution, right? They are going to be writing to starknet. So for that we need to sign, we need to sign those messages, right? So we need an account for that. But before that, I don't know if there are any stuffs in the chat. So Akimbola asks, provided the contract was deployed on testnet, how do we read? Provided the contract was deployed on testnet, how do we read? Okay, if I understand your question right, you're asking if the contract was deployed on testnet, how do you like read that? So I think there are different what's it called? You can either use SN main or you can use, I think, SN Gweli for Gweli 1 or SN Gweli 2, right? But I think Gweli 2 will be deprecated soon. So for testnet, right, testnet 1, you could use this instead. And for mainnet, but for mainnet, we're going to be using starknet main. And the second question, where do we impute the RPC you spoke about moments ago? So you're still going to pass it as an argument. You could just check the starknet.js docs for that, right? So what's the correct order for initializing a contract? Is it address, ABI, connection? It's ABI, address, and connection. So the second is correct. So you pass in the ABI, then you pass in the address, and finally you pass in the connection. Okay. Yes, Satyam just answered your question, Akimbola. Okay. Okay. So I think we could proceed, right? Then for the increase counter and the decrease counter, we are going to also need to instantiate a contract. But this time around, we are going to do that using the account which we got from our connection object. So yeah. So I'm going to pass in the contract API. Then I'm going to pass in the contract address. And finally, we need to pass in the account. We need to pass in the account API, the account objects we're going to be using to sign, right? All right. And once we do that, I guess the only thing we need to do is increase counter does not exactly return anything, right? Doesn't return selves. So the outputs are increments rather doesn't return anything, right? And there are also many inputs we need to pass in. So all we just need to do is we just wait calling it. So we're going to say contract dot increments, right? Increment. So we're going to await contract dot increment. Okay, and then finally, okay, that's just I think as much as we need to do, right? So, but let's also do this on a try catch. Just to ensure if we run into errors, we can debug that. So let's catch an error, and then we're going to console, log it to the console. Okay. And just for okay, so one more thing I'd like to do, right, is because if we call increase and we sign, um the only UX experience or the only thing that notifies the user that the whole thing was completed, right, is probably if he tracks it through his wallet and he sees that okay, or tracks it through stack scan and sees that his increment transaction has been completed. So we could just do something very simple, right? We could say await this, and when we are done, we could just use JavaScript alert to tell the user, okay, you successfully increase the counter. Okay, right. So once we do that, and we go back to this thing, so we need to definitely be connected to do that. Now let's try to increase. Okay. Start squarely. The past 10 minutes. Okay. I think my Bravo's account is like it's currently on Gweli, and I don't exactly have an account on minutes. So just let me disconnect right and connect to Argent instead. So this just happened again. Okay. So let's I think my have it on minutes to carry out transactions. So we're just going to use this. So let me try to call like the increase um the increase function, right? We're going to need to confirm this. It says you successfully increase the counter. But I don't think that's successfully increased because as you can see from your check your agent's wallet extension, you can see that the transaction is not yet completed. Okay, the transaction has successfully gone through, right? So we can now call get counter, and as you can see, we get returned 5. It means our increase counter function is working as expected. And for the decrease counter, we are also going to do something very similar, right? So we can say constant contracts equals new contract. We want to pass in the contract ABI. We want to pass in the contract address, and we want to pass in our account object. Okay, and we are just going to await contracts that we're going to be calling the decrement function. So decrement function, and if you check your API, right, you see that we don't need to pass in any inputs. There are no inputs and there are no outputs, so we could just leave it this way, and then we could just tell the user you successfully decreased the counter. And in case there are errors, we just catch that. And we're going to log it to the console. Okay. And I think that should do the job. Now, if we try to decrease the counter, now we confirm the transaction. Wait for it to go through, and we are going to call get counter to see if it drops to 4. That's taking longer than expected. So while that goes on, let me check. Are there questions in the chat? What would the ABI.json look like if, say, okay, the increment function did take in a parameter? So if there was a parameter for like the increment and decrement function in here, you would probably see something like the type and like the basically the type of the argument you need to pass in. So this is definitely not going to be empty. If there was some arguments to pass in, it's like I think the types of like the arguments you need to pass in, same for the outputs, right? So just like get counter, so this is not going to be empty. Basically, you're going to see the stuffs that are going in or coming out. Um, I was wondering if it did take one. Okay, you're not supposed to alter the ABI by hand. Yeah, you shouldn't do that actually. Um, it's empty because it takes in no params. I was wondering if you did take one. Okay, bro. We are out of time. Writing and deploying another smart contracts is going to take a lot of time. But then, like I said, if you're not going to be writing your ABIs by hand, so if you write a smart contract, probably you could check on StackScan to see if you find if you go on StackScan, probably go to contracts. Let's see. All these are very complex smart contracts. I was hoping we could get something simpler. Let's see this.
I just pasted one if you want, Darlington. I just compile a simple contract to. Oh, you have a good example, I think. Yes.
All right.
I've just pasted something.
On the chat. Yep. So as you can see here, here's like how it will look like. So sorry, I missed the name property. So yeah, you have the name of like the inputs and the type, which is very essential. The type of the input. This is just how the API would look like. Yeah, I think that answers your question, Hash. Okay. So okay, that's true. Our decrement function. Going back to the React app, right? Okay, that has gone through. So if you try to get counter now, we should get 4 returns. So we could just keep doing that, increasing and decreasing the counter. And just like that, right? You've built your first decentralized application on Starknet, which interacts with your Starknet smart contract. And something we can probably also touch on is using starknet-react. But before we go to touch on starknet-react, you could ask your questions in the chat. While you ask your questions in the chat, I'm just going to do a recap of everything we just did. Right. So if you have any questions, just use the chat while I try to go through everything we did from scratch again. So basically, let's say you're starting a new project from scratch. You're not using my boilerplates, right? You need to install your dependencies. You need to install the Argent slash get-starknet dependency. You need to install the the starknet.js dependency, right? And the rest are optional, right? If you're using React, you need your React dependencies. If you're using Next.js, whatever it is you're using, right? Svelte, White, whatever it is, the dependencies should be contained here. But your two important dependencies, right, is this and this. Okay. So once you have that installed, you can create your ABI folder, put in your ABI.json file, paste your ABI in here. So ABI is how, like I said earlier, it's how we inform starknet.js of put simply, right, it's how we inform starknet.js of the functions or the methods contained in our contract which we need to call. All right, so next up, you go into the app.js. The first thing is you need to do, right, import your methods, your connect and disconnect method from Argent slash get-starknet. And these are also important methods. You probably need to import your contracts API, your provider API, and the constant method. Okay. So you obviously need to import your APIs because you're going to be using that. Your APIs, you need to import the contract address you want to interact with. And once you have that ready, right, every other thing is very easy. So we had to set these three states because we're going to use them repeatedly, right? So we set the connection, we set the account, we set the address, and we also have to set the retrieve value, right? Because we want to ensure that when we call the get counter, the value that we retrieve, we want to set it, probably set it, and because we were going to use it here, right? So once you have those values set, right, you probably need to so we could look at this. This is like the first important method, how you establish a wireless connection. So you just need to simply call the connect method. You want to await it and get the object returned stored in the connection variable. And I said, if you need access to web wallet, right, you can pass in the web wallet URL parameter. And this points to the iframe location where the iframe loads from. That's web.argent.xyz. And you can basically, we want to be on the safe side, right? We want to check that connection was established. Connection that is connected is true, right? And if it's true, then we should have access to these properties. We should have access to account property. We should have access to selected address property. So we just simply set that to our use state, right? And our disconnect is very simple. We call the disconnect method, which does the disconnecting. The next thing we need to do is we need to unset all the states we set initially, right? Unset the connection, unset the account, and set the address to empty. And so we had our increase counter, decrease counter, get counter function. We decided to start from the get counter, right? So basically with the get counter, all we did was we had to instantiate a new provider, and having instantiated a new provider, we had to use a try catch. And just in case we run into errors, right, we have that logged to the console and we could check that out. And we started with initializing or instantiating a new contract because that's very important. We need to create an instance of our smart contract. That's smart contract we want to interact with. And to do that, we pass in the ABI, we pass in the address, and we pass in our provider. And so we make calls to the get current count, and we store the value. So we use to string to like, I think change it from big number. And for the decrease counter, we do very similar stuff, right? Except that instead of provider, we need to use accounts, because if you are going to invoke a function, I think if you try it with the provider or you try it with all these accounts, right, you will get through an error that says if you want to invoke without like a sign or an account, you need to pass in the correct one, something like that. So you need to invoke from an account and call your function. If we had input, we have passing our inputs here, and then alert, just or you suppose it's right. The same thing happens with increase counter, except at this time around we're calling the increment method. So I think that's like a rundown of everything we just did. I don't know if there are any questions before we proceed. Okay, thanks, Pierre. Okay, dummy question. I like functional languages using backend and frontend. Is it possible to use some framework based on functional language such as ELM or Phoenix or other written in Rust, Rocket? Well, I haven't tried any of these which you just mentioned, right? But I think there's starknet RS, which since it's written in Rust, I believe you should be able to use it for frameworks, Rust-based frameworks, right? But don't take my
Yeah,
word for
there is
it. You could
starknet.
probably just check out.
We have starknet
Sorry, want me to
RS,
continue? Yeah.
starknet Go, and starknet PY. I believe those are the ones that are actively managed right now, and starknet RS is getting a lot of attention. So yeah.
Yep. So just explore them, and basically the knowledge from here is all you need, right? Because they work on the same foundation, the contract, provider, accounts, and signer. You understand that, and I believe we should be able to like use any of those frameworks. And methods like .is sources are valuable for contract instances. I mean, in case we want to track if the transaction went through or not. I don't think so. I don't think I found something like that, right? Um, I don't exactly use starknet.js a lot, but I don't think I've found something like that. But maybe if I do right out, I'll just probably check, confirm, and get back to you on Discord. Yeah. So I'm getting this error, cannot read properties of undefined, reading starknet mean. How to resolve this issue? Did you import the constants method from starknet? Okay. And so basically, let me just paste this in the chat. Yep. So I don't know. Does the code look like this? Like, did you call the network name property before call it passing in starknet name? Oh, that's strange. The other thing I could probably think of is what network is your wallet connected to? Are you on mainnet or are you on testnet? Uh oh, I think I know where your issues from. Can you what version of starknet.js do you have? Like remember I had to update some of my stuffs. I think are you using 5.18.0? Because I think the last time I had to do that, I didn't instantiate the provider this way. So just to confirm, are you on 5.18.0? Oh, try to update to 5.18.0. I think that should like fix it. Yeah, try to update that and just let me know. Let me just paste my package.json. So these are my dependencies look like. Okay, these are the important ones. This and yep, so these are the versions you should use. And in case you run into errors while trying to install your files, right, you could do install using legacy PLF's argument. Yep, you're welcome. All right. So I don't know. Are there any more questions?
Darlington, I'm wondering if we should consider, like, and I guess this is an open question for Pierre as well, if we should Dockerize these projects so people can just download and get the ready-made runtime environment.
Okay, I think that would be great. I think it would make things a bit easier. I think it's a good idea.
I didn't hear all of your explanation, Manmeet, but
Oh, I mean, if we just create a Docker environment with all of these dependencies fixed, so people don't have to worry about dependency inconsistencies when they download them internally.
yep, can be a great approach. I don't know if let's yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think that would be amazing. All right. So in the absence of any more questions, I want us to do probably we're not going to build out something with starknet react, right? So I wanted to introduce us to starknet react because it's like a very brilliant easy tool. I think would help you get your DApp from development to production so much faster. All right, so just going to head to starknet react. Int pistol, probably compile all these links and add them to is that folder. I had this folder. Okay, just going to look for that later. All right, so starknet react. Yep. Yeah. So how many of us have tried out WAGMI on Ethereum, right? I know a lot of us have played around with Solidity, working starknet. You probably used. Does anybody use WAGMI? Anybody? All right, so there are a few hands. So yeah, so I guess so you could see Starknet React as the WAGMI for Starknet. So it was greatly inspired by WAGMI, and the whole idea behind Starknet React is to basically provide a collection of hooks which you could just plug and play, right? So imagine all the whole codes we had to write to like establish a connection or to like get an account address and stuff like that, right? Starknet React helps you like just provides hooks that you could use to do stuff like this. And check out the getting started. And I think this is where I think there's an npx command. That's really the question that I can't remember who asked comes in, right? You could also use npm, you could use npx to install this, right? And run npm add at starknet react code. So you have to add this to like your project if you want to have access to starknet react. And starknet react also provides templates, right? Let me check where that stuff is. Let's check your GitHub. So I think the template is called create starknet. Yep. So in here you find two different templates. So you can see that question you asked about, right? If you want to use starknet react with starknet.js out of the box, you could just run npx create starknet and it will install all the necessary dependencies you'll be needing for your project alongside a template. So there are two templates. There's the Next.js template and there's a VII template. You could do that by passing in the template option. That's template arguments, right? And it's optional. And passing the name you want to use. I think you would use next for Next.js and use VIT if you want to use VIT.js instead. And but let's say you have an already existing application like ours and you want to inculcate starknet-react into it, right? The first thing you need to do is you need to run this command. I don't want to. Okay, before I tamper with this, right? Let me just push this to my repo so you guys could have access to it. I'm going to delete the initial one and use this instead. So I'll probably delete this data. So I'll just use a new repository. Use sorry, I suck at naming things, right? So let's just leave it to Basecamp starknet.js class. Yep. And let's just create this repository. Okay. We need to just in here and just push this. Oh, okay. Okay, we need to change the remote. So let's remove the existing one and add a new one. Alright, let's go and see what we do. Yep, so this is just the full working code for the class. Basically, you could reference it in case you're not able to follow through or you want to check back or cross-check something. So I'm just going to paste this in the chat. Yep, so that's it. Now, heading back to, we have 15 minutes left, so let's try to run. Oh, wait. Yep. And as I was saying, right, you need to add this to your application if you want to use it for an existing application. And when you do that, right, you should have you should have the starknet config methods and injected connected methods available to you, which I believe you should be able to loop through to like get these connectors. So this would require us capturing everything we probably built. So let's use a different repository instead. I'm just going to, and we could just use create starknet, use next.js. Where was that? Here. Could run npx create starknet. I think the default should be React. I'm not sure. No. Let's just use with template you have to pass in. Use that again. Here, templates, and let's use next.js. I'm going to name this Basecamp starknet-react. We're going to install our dependencies within this folder, right? When we're done, we're going to change directory and we could just open it, and we're not going to do a lot. So we're just going to probably go through the hooks, try to connect our injected connectors, just to give us an idea of starknet, how starknet-react works. It's very easy to understand. You could just, the docs are self-explanatory. My network has started again. Right, so but while we wait for that to install, right, when you head to the hooks, you can see different hooks you could use and examples also. The docs is very detailed. It's like very amazing, right? So let's say you want to connect to an account, there's the user account hook for that. So if you use this right, you should be able to get something similar to this. Although this has already been styled, right? So you have two default buttons from you have Argent X, you have Bravos from the user account, which although the first thing you need to do is you need to create an array of injectors and pass in the injectors you want to use for your application. Because if you noticed right, when we used our React app, if I try to disconnect, so I'm going to get an error because I already closed. Well, when you use our React app, you try to like it's very difficult or almost impossible, right, to customize our modal to. I'm not sure that's possible, right, to customize our modal to eliminate like a certain wallet. You can't customize your modal to eliminate a certain wallet. You can't customize your modal to probably put let's say put Bravos ahead of Argent X or put Web Wallet ahead of like stuff like that, right? You can't exactly do that. But starknet React gives you full customization out of the box because you have to create an injected connectors array. Let me see if this has installed. This is taking a lot of time and we are out of time. But I think I should have an example somewhere. Do I? It's been a little while. Okay, sorry. Please. Up. So this example, though, I'm using the package called starknet kits, which is something we're working on at Argent. But ignoring that, right? Basically, takes inspiration from starknet React. So you need to create an array of connectors, just as you can see here, right? These are my array of connectors, and you need to wrap your app around this if you want to use starknet React, right? You need to this done installing, still not done. Because this would have been better practice than just thoughts said in mouth. But please just try to follow me, right? So you have to wrap your app around the starknet config. This is what provides you access to all those hooks you can see here. All the hooks you can see here, right? You gain access to them through like the starknet config. And once you wrap it around your app, we want to pass in the connectors as a prop to like so this is like the connectors array, right? And this is just an extra feature which sees probably auto connect and reload or something. That's not necessary, right? But the thing you need to know to write is first you need to create your array of connectors. Once you do that, you wrap your app using the starknet config. Then if you go to the components, there's why is my network so slow? But it's not exactly affecting the call. That's weird. Weird guy. Yep. So you go to the components and then connect.js. So in here I implemented the whole logic for connecting. Although you should just you can ignore most of the styles, but that's the idea basically. You can see you can import the user accounts, and from that you can have access to different other things. I would just encourage you to go through the docs, right? Because we are running out of time already and my network is not exactly helping matters. So I believe the docs is self-explanatory. If you run into issues, I would pay attention to the Discord, ask your questions, and I will try to like assist to the best of my knowledge.
So Darlington, we
I don't know. Are
have
there
less
any
than.
other questions? I think we've like come to the end of the class. Are there any questions?
I was gonna say, since we have less than 10 minutes left over, one thing that I'd request is if you could perhaps mention 2, 3 things that students should do as follow-ups to this class. Of course, like they can clone the repository, play around with it. But is there anything that you did first time you were learning about starknet.js that helped you, any follow-up?
I'm not sure if I hear you. Or perhaps
Okay. Let's give him a second. I also want to share something with this. Oh, well, actually, this is great. This gives me the opportunity to make my announcement. But before I make... Hey, Darlington.
Sorry about that. Yeah, sorry about that. My network is really misbehaving. I have. Oh my god. Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Can you hear me now?
we can hear you. I was just going to ask if you can perhaps provide the students with a little bit of, like maybe 2 or 3 suggestions for how they can follow up on this lecture and like things that they can do on their own time from the teachings that you have given. Something like that.
All right. So the if I could give like 3 advices, I would say if to follow after the lectures. One would be like checking out the 2 major documentations, right? Check out starknet.js documentation, and check out starknet-react documentation. I believe both are like very much self-explanatory. You run into issues, you could always ask on the Discord channel, and I will like try to attend to you. Um, like I said, go through the documentation. There's a lot there which we could not mention because of time, but you would definitely find it very helpful. You'd learn more about the APIs you mentioned, the contracts, the provider, the signer, and so on and so forth, right? And I also talked about Starknet React, but we couldn't do a lot with it due to time and my bad network, right? But just go through the documentation. I believe it's also very self-explanatory. Try to play around with Starknet React because for most projects you might want to use Starknet React since it provides certain hook out of the box you could just plug in and use, right? I feel like that's something a lot of persons want to try out. It would like fasten your development process by a lot. So please do check it out. And obviously you can't learn how to build good UIs if you don't practice. So it doesn't end with the class, right? Just go back, try to build something more complex. Probably this time around you build stuff that's, let's say, that's taking values. So something you could probably do, you could take that as like an unofficial assignment, right? Is try to implement this same contract you just implemented, right? But this time around you can use a contract that takes in an input. So when you try to pass in increment, it's you can pass in the number by which you the value by which you want to increment. So you can say I want to increment by 5, and if I had to write my current counter should be 7. And you could also do if I want to decrement, right, I should decrement by 3, and if I have like 7, my current counter should be 4. So you could just try that out. And during the course of that, I believe you would learn a few things about data transformation, and I guess that's it. Just a lot of practice, and with no time, you'll be building amazing UIs.
Gotcha, gotcha. I also want to use the last 2, 3 minutes to make a quick announcement. So, every time we organize Basecamp, we see a little bit of attrition from starting class. Usually we'll start with 3, 4, 500 people, have closer to 50 people who actually put in the work and finish strong. So this time we're really happy. We've got a large number of people who are doing well. I mean, we're already 1 session to the close. We have a lot of hackathons and other incentives coming up for Basecamp graduates. And I am personally, since I'm running the US branch of StarkNet Foundation's DevRel, if you are on this call, you're based in the US, and you're interested in participating in hackathons in the coming weeks, please reach out to me on Telegram, and we want to put you in touch with the right resources. So I just put my Telegram up in the Slack channel. Feel free to in the meets call messages, and yeah, please feel free to DM me with a little bit of background, how you found Basecamp so far, and what kind of hackathons you're interested in, and we can take it from there. So that was a really important announcement from my end. But yeah, that having been said, I want to thank Darlington for the lecture. Of course, I'll end the recording and put this up on YouTube, and thanks to Pierre for his support. Hackathons are both in-person and remote. Of course, when they're remote, there's no restriction to the geography from where you can participate. But I also would just like to get in touch with people who are in the US, because there are other incentive programs that we are starting. Awesome. So I'm going to stop the recording and see you guys soon.
Thank you, Darlington. See you guys. Thank you, Mindmeet. Bye, Robert.
Yeah. Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye-bye, guys.
Do have an amazing day ahead. Bye, everyone.